This is a short revision guide looking at the key terminology that you're going to need to employ in your answers for Unit 4. And this covers all three sections, A, B and C. So what this is going to take you through is the key terminology that you need to know, and in particular an example from section B where the use of that key terminology can elevate an answer from being good to possibly being excellent or even outstanding. So first of all, starting with the keywords for voice. Here are 10 absolutely vital keywords to do with voice. There are obviously more, but these are boiled down to 10 really important keywords that if you were to describe how an actor says a particular line using all of these 10 keywords, you'd be describing it in a good level of depth. So these 10 are broken down into chunks of 5, because 5 is a really good way of remembering information. So we've got then the first 5 is intonation, tone, rhythm, energy and emphasis, and the second 5 is volume, pace, pause, pitch and projection. Moving on to movement words, you've got the first 5, which is leading body part, facial expression, body language, gestures and energy, and the second 5 is stance, posture, proxemics, pace and rhythm. And again, if you describe the way an actor walks around the space or enters the space and interacts with their fellow actors and the set around them using those 10 keywords, then you've done so in a good level of depth that will communicate to the examiner that you understand the demands of creating something on stage. So moving on to how an example of how keywords can elevate an answer. Here is an example from section B that doesn't actually employ any keywords. It's a good answer though. This is one small part of a paragraph of which you would probably write 2 to 3, maybe even 4 of these paragraphs. So starting by reading it through, we've got when Royschek says quiet, can you hear it? I'd ask the actor to crouch down and pull Andres down with him. This would communicate that Royschek wants to share a secret with Andres. So within that first point there, you've got some description of what you'd want the actors to do, but that description doesn't have any key words in it. And you've got some context of what you'd want to get out of that, what you'd communicate. Those two things are really, really important in terms of what you want to get from the exam and communicating to the examiner that you've understood the requirements. So in a sense, that's a good start. And it carries on in a similar vein. So I'd ask the actor to say the word quiet, hushed and slowly as they descend. This would communicate that Royschek is paranoid and worried that others might hear what he has to say. Similar format, we've got the context of what we're talking about, the how we do it, hushed and slowly, and why we do it to communicate Royschek's paranoia. I'd ask the actor playing Royschek to communicate a sense of discomfort and paranoia. When Royschek says, can you hear it, Andres, can you hear it? I'd ask the actor to show that Royschek wants to confirm that someone else can see and hear the things he is seeing and hearing. This establishes that whilst Royschek is having a delusion, he is only beginning and can still question his own mind and perceptions. When he repeats the question, can you hear it? It highlights the sense of urgency in Royschek, a sense of panic and fear that he might be having a delusion and nothing he thinks is real is. I think that would be quite a frightening experience. So that towards the end of that paragraph there, it becomes more analytical of the play rather than talking about the how you'd go and how you'd go about doing it. And you need to make sure that you have both. So this structure of having your quote, then saying how you do it, and then why you do it, is a really good and important framework for writing an answer. But if we then add those key words, and we've really elevated that answer, So when Roystack says quiet, can you hear it? I'd ask the actor to crouch down in their stance and pull Andres down with them, making their proxemics close, and ask them to make eye contact. These proxemics and eye contacts would communicate that Roystack wants to share a secret with Andres. I'd ask the actor to say the word quiet in a hushed tone of voice and at a slow pace, as they descend also at a slow pace. This would communicate that Roystack is paranoid and worried that others might hear what he has to say. I'd ask the actor playing Roystack to experiment with different body language and posture, to find something that communicates a sense of discomfort and paranoia. But when Roystack says, can you hear it, Andres, can you hear it? I'd ask the actor to emphasize the word you. Because I think Roystack wants to confirm that someone else can see and hear the things that he is seeing and hearing. This establishes that whilst Roystack is having a delusion, he is only beginning and can still question his own mind and perceptions. I'd also ask for a pause between Andres and when he repeats the question, can you hear it? I'd also ask to say the line in a louder volume and with heavier emphasis on the word here. I think this would highlight the sense of urgency in Roystack, a sense of panic and fear. They might be having a delusion, and that nothing he thinks is real is. I think that it would be quite a frightening experience. So looking at those key words and how those key words have elevated that answer, suddenly that answer shows us in a lot of detail, a good quote, a really detailed explanation of how you would do it, and then a sound response as to why you'd do it. And that process is really what we want to get from these answers. And that's why using those key words is really, really important. So as a kind of final tip, really avoid simply writing context without those key words. So instead of describing how you want it to be done, use the key words. And use specific keywords and not generalizations. So use keywords like facial expressions rather than the phrase, the look on his face. All right. It would be ideal for you to have learnt those key words so that you don't have to refer to them. But at minimum, write the key words in a prominent place in your text so that you can refer to them throughout the exam.